All right, we'll go ahead and call the November 14th Harrison Planning Commission to order. Joette, I'll let you go ahead and start the roll call.
Mr. Wilson.
Here.
Ms. Knock.
Here.
Mr. McMurdo.
Here.
Mr. Graff. Mayor Nyer.
Here.
All right, go ahead and do the pledge.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to make a motion to excuse Mr. Graff. He made us aware of
Second.
the absent.
Second that motion.
Ms. Knock.
Yay.
Mr. McMurdo.
Yay.
Mayor Nyer.
Yay.
Mr. Wilson.
Yeah. All right. I would like to welcome you all coming out tonight. Thank you for that. We don't have any new business on the agenda. We do have minutes that we need to approve from our October 10th meeting.
Wilson moves to approve the minutes.
Knock seconds them.
Mayor Nyer.
Yay.
Mr. Wilson.
Okay.
Ms. Knock.
Yay.
Mr. McMurdo.
Yay. And I don't believe we have any old business.
Well, I'd like to make a couple announcements. First, Gradison has requested a reconsideration by this board and has pulled their item off of the council agenda for the 21st. So that means they have to come back here and go through the steps of presenting their plan, any changes, whatever, having a public hearing,
Wilson can hear.
and having a vote. And then based on whatever that vote is, it'll go forward from, excuse me, from there to council. So it's not a new plan. It's not a necessarily revised plan. They're coming back for reconsideration. They feel they have points that they would like to raise, and they may have a revision to it. I don't know, but they will come back to this board before they go to council. They've requested that. I reviewed it with the law director. He said it is permissible within our code, but they can't just come back and get another vote. They have to go through a presentation and a public hearing prior to the vote. So with that understanding, I'd like to set that public hearing for our December meeting night at 7, or let's make it 7 p.m. That would be the public hearing on December, I don't know the exact date, the second Tuesday in December at 7 p.m.
The 12th.
There would be the ability for Planning Commission to vote that evening. They're not required to vote the same evening of the public hearing, depending on what they hear. The commission has the right to vote that evening or wait till the next meeting to vote, but it would no later than the January meeting would be the vote. So I'd like to make a motion to set that public hearing for December, you said 12th?
Yep, December 12th.
The 12th at 7 p.m.
Wilson seconds.
Mr. McMurdo.
Yay.
Mayor Nyer.
Yay.
Mr. Wilson.
Yay.
Ms. Knock.
Yay.
So we will set that up for December 12th at 7.
Okay. And then I would also like to set a work session the week of the 27th.
November 27th.
November 27th, 28th, 29th, that week. Anytime after 6:30. To have a work session with Gradison. It will be open to the public. It will be a session for us to interact with the developer to find out why they are wanting reconsideration, have a more in-depth conversation. Without a public comment period, public is welcome to come, just we're not going to invite you up to the stand to speak at that meeting. We want to have a work session with the developer. What's going on in your mind? What are you thinking type of a work session?
So correct me if I'm wrong. Council meets on the 28th?
No,
of 20? Do they not
Council
meet?
meets the first and third, so
Okay.
the 28th would be the fourth Tuesday.
Okay, gotcha.
So we have that. Andy's available that week.
I
I
am
believe
available.
Jerry is.
I am as well.
November
So
28th is what we're
what
looking at.
evening works best for you guys?
So BZA will be in here.
On the
Tuesday.
28th.
Yeah.
Tuesday, the 28th.
But we could meet in a different room. It's a work session. It does not need to be televised. We could do any of those evenings. Tree board meets in 110. We can use the multipurpose room. It's large enough for a crowd. We could use the exec conference room depending on the size of the crowd.
The one over there.
The 28th is the best for me. I have the music boosters on the 27th.
And we can do the 29th. That's available also. I want to make sure that everybody's there.
Missed
Oh,
is
go on.
Kraft selling the New England Patriots?
I'll get it off in a minute.
Either one of those days work for me, 28th or 29th.
Either the 28th or 29th works for me as well.
Mr. Wilson, does 28th or 29th?
Any day's good for me, Mayor.
Let's move it on the 29th.
Okay.
That way we can definitely have this room.
Okay.
It's a nicer venue. I'll make my motion for the work session to be on November 29th at 6:30, not 7, 6:30 PM
6:30 PM heard.
here in council chambers.
I will second the motion.
Tuesday night, huh?
Wednesday.
Wednesday night.
The 29th.
Oh, okay, I was looking, never mind, I was looking at November.
It is November 29th
November 29th.
Oh, 29th, okay.
You got it.
and 6:30 PM, Jerry.
That's fine.
Mr. McMurdo?
Yeah,
Mayor Nyer?
Yay.
Mr. Wilson?
Yay.
Ms. Knock?
Yay.
Okay, I will set that for the 29th at 6:30.
And that's everything I have regarding Gradison. Like, the work session should be very telling to us, what they're thinking, why they want to be reconsidered instead of going to council. I've not had enough conversations with them to get that information yet.
are we allowed to let them speak?
Are we,
You got a question?
go ahead.
Come on up. Yeah, come on up.
That way we can hear you on the playback.
I don't have to repeat it, everybody hears it.
Obviously, we saw the planning commission, not recommend it again
Correct.
for the second time, and we felt that was a bit of a victory for us and what we were looking to have happen. So we're obviously disappointed. And we're just trying to understand kind of the process and series of events that led up to this and understand kind of the backstory a little bit. Joette, you had sent me an email looking for my phone number because Jerry wanted to give me a call, and I think I got 5 calls that night saying, hey, Jerry really wants to talk to you. Jerry wants to talk, and we had a good conversation. And you talked about your desire to get with Gradison and broker a compromise, and you asked specifically what we wanted and the things we were looking for, because you were going to talk to Gradison and hopefully come back with, and give them information that they could use to come back with a better plan. So I'm just curious whether or not your conversation, your obvious subsequent conversation with Gradison led to them asking for the reconsideration, or whether their request for the reconsideration 2 or 3 weeks ago was the catalyst for your phone call for us, or just what the back channel story was. And, we sat over here with Mr. Dieters last week and talked a little bit about the potential for a lawsuit and whether that was something that was coming up. And you, Jerry, you'd mentioned that there were bad things that could happen and you didn't want them to happen. And so I'm just trying to get a sense of really kind of the backstory here. And if you guys don't want to share that, that's fine. I get it. But I think we would be remiss not to ask.
So, to the best of my knowledge, Gradison did not request to be pulled from the council agenda for reconsideration by this body until after they had spoke to, and I think they spoke to 3 or 4 different people. Mr. Wilson was one, I was one, the incoming mayor was one person. I'm not sure if they had conversations with other people, but I know that at the very least they spoke to those 3 people. And then during my conversation, they asked if reconsideration at this board was something they could do. And so I asked our law director what the legalities of that were and informed them of that and told them that they had till Friday to inform us of their decision so that we could talk about it tonight. If they didn't do it by Friday, then they would lose all of November and all of December because they couldn't have a public hearing till January. I said, so the ball's in their court. If you want a reconsideration and want to be able to save as much time as possible, Friday was their deadline to do that. They did it by Friday, close of business. So they pulled themselves off the council agenda, requested to come back to this body. I did not tell them or promise them anything other than if they want to come in, I'd listen. They talked about a whole bunch of different things in the meeting, and I said, I can't change anything, and I don't vote at the council meetings. I said, if you want to be reconsidered, I'll find out the legality of that, and you have to get this body, if it's legal, to consider that. So that's where my conversation started and ended, was the ball in their court. You decide what you want to do and how much time you want to consume. If you want to go forward with the council, that's fine. If you want to come back to this body, it's fine. Here's your timelines. And I told them I don't get to change anything at this point. It's your decisions if you want to go forward or come back. And they decided to come back, and then this body will listen to what they have to say. I think the work session will give us the opportunity to have a more direct interaction with the developer. I'm perfectly happy to have anybody here to listen, and it's not there's no secrets here. We want to do it in an open forum. But when you have people from the audience that when they're talking, asking questions, and it's noisy, it can be hard to follow what they're talking about. So it's going to be a better venue for us to get information, exchange information. They'll still have to do a formal presentation, though, at the December meeting.
And for full transparency, the members at large of this committee just found out about this yesterday and today,
About the,
about Graddison wanting to
Okay.
do, yeah.
all right.
So this is not, this is,
Okay, no, I get it,
Yeah.
I get it.
I did not forward information to the board or ask Joette to until we knew what was
They were
going to
gonna do
happen.
it.
If Graddison had reached out to any of the other members of the board, I didn't know if they had or hadn't, but they had all of their emails. They could have reached out to other people on council also, but I don't know. The three people I named, I know they spoke to.
Right. Well, in our, just sort of our little side conversation at last council's meeting, it was discussed that it would benefit Graddison to come to the council with a recommendation versus a non-recommendation, and they very much were desirous for that to happen. So, I mean, I guess I'm just trying to understand what, if there is some other motivation in the way of a potential lawsuit or any of those conversations, or Jerry, maybe I didn't really give you, and I apologize for last week, I didn't give you a chance to fully explain what you were saying about bad things are going to happen and we don't want them to happen. I think those were your words. I'm curious what those bad things are, and maybe we can help you guys defray them somehow if we can.
Well, there's always a potential for people to, it takes, I think, $165 in an ink pen to file a lawsuit. You don't even need a lawyer to start with. And today, there's many frivolous lawsuits filed. But every time that the city gets named in a lawsuit, and it could be by a residents group, it could be an individual resident, it could be a developer, whatever, we have to be defended. And those defenses aren't free. Even just to go down and say this is a frivolous lawsuit, we want it dismissed, that cost us money. So the most recent lawsuit that I was involved with that we settled started 2 administrations before I took office, and that was with Cincinnati Waterworks. Over 16 years in the court system. Luckily, we were covered by our insurance company. And our settlement with Cincinnati Waterworks was extremely minimal, considering at one point it was in excess of $7 million they're requesting, and all their attorney fees. So, those are all things that go into that mix. It's not really entered my mind at this point, that I'm concerned about that, but it is something that we're getting closer to concern with. I know that, you know, you've got a lot of different parties involved here between the property owners, the developers, residents in the community. They all have some type of stake in this game. And any one of those parties could potentially come back with legal action. Something, I will tell you, one of the worst zoning things that ever happened in the city was a mandate from the court, because we ended up in court over a zoning decision with Walmart, and they dictated to us how to zone the property. Walmart wasn't happy, we weren't happy, and at the end of the day, the property sat vacant until Cincinnati Test Systems managed to buy half of it from them. And Walmart did everything in their power to make that property as invaluable as possible, so they paid a pittance in taxes during that period of time. I mean, they didn't even sharecrop it. They just let it vacant. So the court's the worst place to get a zoning decision at, in my personal opinion.
So it sounds like the potential for some legal action's always there.
It's always there.
Always there, but in this particular case, you guys have had no conversations with anyone in that regard, and it certainly wasn't, I guess, I just want to clarify and make sure that it wasn't the catalyst.
Well, I do have.
Well, let me just finish my question.
I have knowledge of, and have had for quite a while, that one of the parties has retained an attorney.
Okay,
But they've not threatened legal action.
right. And so that wasn't the catalyst for our conversation 2 Thursdays ago. I just want to make sure that that wasn't a conversation that was had like, hey, we better get with those front door people and find out what they want, because we may need to strike a deal.
I don't think that type of conversation occurred to spark that conversation that Jerry
Right.
had with you.
Okay, so if you'd indulge one more, I guess then the question is, Jerry, you and I spoke, and I think you kind of left that with a bit more understanding of what we were looking for. Is that, do we feel like Grattison's willing to kind of listen to what we're talking about, or are they, and because heretofore what they've done is come back with some nuance and 4 less here and 5 less here, and basically the same backs to fronts like they have on West Haven, and they haven't really gotten to.
They've not said to anybody that I know of what they're planning on coming
Okay.
back with.
Right, so,
Is this now a public forum, or is this our meeting?
He's part of the meeting where he asked
Okay.
to ask a question, I'm allowing him to
All right.
ask. I want to have as much transparency on what
we appreciate
transpired
that.
as I
We
can.
appreciate that. Okay, well, anyone else have a question? I mean,
The only thing I was really wondering is, did Jerry share with Gratison?
Out of,
Did Jerry
can you go
share?
ahead and say who you are and where you
Oh,
live?
Tony Malillo, part of the Front Door Project, and we were just talking about that Jerry reached out to us to ask us what would be acceptable. And my question is, did you share that with Gratison?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I wondered. Thanks.
Any other questions from the audience?
I'm Mary Beth Gandy. I was just going to say, you know, you're going to work with Gratison or talk with Gratison for more details or whatever, which we've heard them present this so many times. I don't know what it is now that they're going to add, but we were wondering if at some point the citizens could meet with the council or with you guys to go over our concerns, because it seems like Gratison, well, for one thing, do you guys remember when Mears said, if you vote this down, we're going to respect your wishes and move on? And they have not done that at all.
I don't recall that, but we're talking, what's this been in here, 6 months, 9 months now? And quite frankly, I'm here 3 nights a month, you know, twice for council and once for planning, and I don't keep meticulous notes about what every person says.
Well, true, that was something stuck in my mind though, and a few other people, but
But we did have open forums for the public. The one we had was down at the Legion, when you had 100 and some people to come in and express what they wanted. We've done that.
well, sort of. We got Gradison sneering at us and rolling his eyes and, you know, like when the Adam Lohmeyer, whatever his name was giving statistics about the student population,
Adam
whatever.
Lobeck.
Yeah, he shook his head like that's not the case.
Regardless of what he did, I mean, when you asked, are we gonna have a forum where the public can express their concerns, we did that.
And we'll have another one.
Well,
And
we
we'll have
did it,
another
but then Gradison was right behind that, right? And came up and gave his whole spiel then too, right?
I would like to say that it's very beneficial for the members of the Planning Commission. If you would like to have your, you know, what you want, it's great to have a black and white copy of what everyone wants, because when people do come up to the podium, emotion does win out.
True.
And as
But what will
one
we
of
do,
the members
email
of
it to
this,
you, or?
one of the members of this commission that, you know, voted on a, to not have a recommendation go to council. I understand everyone's emotion, but we are looking at the, you know, the potential of someone lawyering up. We're looking at, like, we need to say, all right, we're just not gonna say, no, nothing can go in there. We need to hear what is appropriate to go in there. Yes, we have the,
Comprehensive.
thank you, the comprehensive plan that we have used as our guideline for very long. But I'm saying that if you have something that you want us to look at, we would be happy to look at it in black and white.
Okay.
So-
Okay.
I feel like we've made that clear over and over and
So-
over again.
So at the end of the day, the property,
Which is very helpful.
since it has annexed into the city, the way the process goes is that any property annexed in Harrison Township into the city of Harrison, which that is in the township or was, is zoned R0. R0 is a non-developable lot. The owner of the property has to come in and request one of the residential zones, because it cannot come in as R0 and then go to a business zone. It has to go to a residential zone, one of the developable ones. What they're requesting is the least dense R1 zone with a PUD overlay, which in the PUD, the density has to be at that or less. You can't allow them to put a higher density than in an R1 with a PUD overlay. It has to be, that density has to be no denser than X. And, but you can change some of the lot sizes in exchange for green space, in exchange for buffering, in exchange for amenities that they might add. So you can make adjustments within the code that might say, and I'm gonna pick a number, 10,000 square foot lots. Well, some of the lots might come in at 8 and some might come in at 14 because they're gonna do certain things that work better with that development that make it a win for the city, a win for the development, a win for the neighbors. So that's the beauty of a PUD. The underlying core part of the zoning sticks, but you can make soft adjustments within that zone. And that's why they asked for the PUD. So if they came in and asked for straight R1, there's almost no way we could deny that. Almost no way. We could prove, if we could prove, and we already said we don't when we accepted the property in, a hardship in our utilities. We don't have capacity at the water plant or capacity at the wastewater plant to serve it. We wouldn't have been able to accept the annexation from the county. And so those two arguments are gone. Police and fire, we also had to certify we have sufficient police and fire to serve the property. If we could have shown that it was a financial hardship to service this property, then we could deny the R1, but we already said we had that when we accepted it from the county. So we really don't have a leg to stand on to deny one of the R zones to be applied to that property. So we've pushed to get it to a R1 PUD so that we can massage it into a package that is best suited for that property. But if they came in and they said, you know what, we're gonna pull, we don't want to go for a PUD, we just want to go straight R1, they skip here, they go straight to council. And if council would say no, my money would be on a lawsuit. And that's gonna mean standard setbacks, however many feet, 65-foot width or whatever an R1 is at the setback, and then so many feet from the curb you can have the front line of the house. You can't build in the last so many feet a lot, and so many foot setbacks on the side yards, and those are in stone already in our code.
And they wouldn't have to put mounding in or?
No, none of that
All
would be
the
required.
pretty
They'd have a
stuff that they've
landscape plan.
offered.
That would be it.
It's all gone.
The dog park?
The dog park, all the amenities are,
Well, we're
They
looking
might
more at
put 'em
like
in, but
the
they
real
might
things
not.
that really do matter, like the mounding, like the.
Yeah,
the
but even
land.
to that, my husband brought up the last time, if that road has to be widened, that's gonna all be gone. Gradison said it wouldn't, but
well.
we'd have to
they-
cut into
They
that.
can't put any of their amenities that they're gonna add, whether it be the mounding, the landscaping, within the right-of-way. So the right-of-way is the width that the street can be widened to. So if there's 25 feet of existing right-of-way on each side of Carolina Trace there, those 25 feet, there won't be mounding or additional buffering type of trees and stuff put in there. It will be at the back of the right-of-way.
Are we thinking about doing a traffic study, though?
So there's been one
Sorry
traffic
for that.
study, and it's
It
been
was in front of Circling
revisited
Hills, though,
once.
right?
What?
That was just done in front of, that wasn't done like at the intersection or anything, though, right?
So it was done at a higher density of homes than what they're currently proposing. So if it was to be revisited, it might become less lax. We've not asked them to revisit it.
Well, considering too that we've got, 450 homes
Well,
on the way.
those homes that were already on the books before this traffic study was conducted. And so when they look at the intersection, the only place that this traffic study would have looked at that would have been impacted by the trailhead development would be the New Haven Road Carolina Trace intersection by UDF and the library, that intersection. And they would look at through traffic there. So coming down Carolina Trace or going up Carolina Trace is not impacted by trailhead. They would look at the existing traffic and what the proposed development would add to that traffic flow, and that's why they've got like deceleration right turn lanes and stuff like that are going to have to be improvements put on Carolina Trace. But it did not merit a traffic signal. It did not merit a four-way stop. It didn't merit any improvements to the Carolina Trace New Haven interchange. The traffic study didn't.
Thank you.
So if the property hadn't been annexed into the city, it would have been built and to the county rural planning zoning commission, whatever the prior zoning was in the Hamilton County. So Harrison Township does not have their own building and zoning code. They rely on Hamilton County building rural planning to do that. And I think it was A1 or AA. Which allows for homes and it allows for some industrial uses. It's kind of a mixed use type of a property. The lots are bigger. They allow for septics. They allow for wells. The city, Gradison's going to extend water and sewer to the development and then put water and sewer throughout the development. Having let's say that they could get 50 houses in there in the bottom on county zoning. That could be 50 more septics. Those are things that there's give and take there. You get a bigger lot, but you have to have 2 perk sites in the county, and minimum lot sizes are different in the county. Their zoning is all controlled downtown Cincinnati. Ours is local. Code enforcement's done. The county does, or the township does have a code enforcement person that comes out when they request them.
say they just have to meet the zoning.
So that's mostly true. Whitewater Township has no zoning, none. So you can build your $500,000 house and the guy next door can decide to open a recycling center. There's no control, no restriction. Some people view that as great, and other people view that as horrible.
So the R1, so if they came back and said, well, we just want to do a straight R1 with PUD, you're saying it would be hard to say no, because
So
that's what the zoning is.
at some point, the city will have to assign a zone to that property. Whether it has a PUD overlay on it or not is irrelevant, but at some point, it will have to get a zone assigned to it.
But once it's assigned, does the city still have a say though? Like in my mind, I think it says it's an R1. On one hand, somebody would say, well, it's an R1 zone, and we want to come in with an R1, it's going to be really hard for you to say we can't. But then on the other hand, isn't it the city, like, could the city say, well, we just did 3 other R1s, you know, Edgewood, whatever, we did all these others, we're not ready for another 250 houses because of these other problems.
That's not something we can
No, we can't
say.
do that.
So
No.
if we had been able to identify a hardship and deny the annexation, that's where that would have had to occur. So we do not aggressively annex property. Our properties are all type 2 annexations, which means the property stays inside the township, but then becomes part of the city also. So those people vote for township trustees and city council and the mayor. What happens is the parcels that want to be annexed in, the process starts with Hamilton County. They file a petition for annexation, and it goes through the Hamilton County process, and Hamilton County sends us a thing that says, we have a request for annexation, we're recommending approval, will you accept it or do you deny it based on ABC hardship? And if we can't list those and we deny it anyhow, then we're probably gonna get stuck with it by the county, they're gonna force us to take it. But I've been here 22 years, and in 22 years, we've never initiated as the city the annexation of a parcel of property. It's always been the owner, an adjacent owner, going to their neighbor and saying, look, we want to get in the city. Will you annex in? And that's what happened with Parks of Whitewater. There was property in between, and the developers, gave consideration to the intermediate property for them to annex in, so it would be contiguous, because you have to touch, your property line has to touch the city to be eligible to annex in.
I have one further question and a comment. The question's a governance question. My understanding is that the new mayor-elect will be able to appoint his own, he appoints the planning commission.
So the planning commission members are appointed on a 3-year rotation. One member's terms expires each year. A member is free to resign at any point they want. So the new mayor will have the right to replace one of the 3 at-large members and pick one of the 7 council members to be his representative. So Jerry Wilson's the current council rep. Andy, Tammy, and Brian are the 3 at-large community members that are on this. And who's up next? Is it?
I think it's me.
Yeah, I think it's Tammy is up for her term ends this year.
We hope you stay.
So
You're a good one.
Mr. Grubbs will probably have a conversation with her between now and the end of the year, whether he wants her to stay or tell her that he's going to move on if he has someone else in mind. You know, when I took over, I had a lot of people. Jerry was one of them that came to me and said, my term's not up, but if you don't want me to serve, I'm willing to resign. And I was not about changing things. I kept almost everybody in office that, you know, appointed seats that were in there. And it wasn't about, and I don't think Ryan's about trying to change the direction of the city. So I don't think he's gonna look to change a whole lot of the seats, whether it be planning or BZA. I can't say that for a fact, but I don't imagine that he would. BZA is the same way. They're appointed 5 people on a rotational seating.
And I guess my comment, and I guess it's a question as well. At the Planning Commission public hearing, I forget the date, it was April something, at the Legion that you're referring to, we presented for the public record a compromise plan, which, you know, Tammy, is exactly what you're asking for. I mean, it was
Right.
thought through,
I
and
have
we
a copy of
presented it to each one, and my sense of it is, it was either no one paid any attention to it then, or they'd forgotten about it entirely, because, you know, I feel like a lot of the things we talked about could have been informed by that document. And so, you know, perhaps what we need to do is go back and revisit it. As I look at it now, it's not exactly where we were. As we started this journey, front door project, and I think there's a slight distinction, and I think Gradison's missing this, and maybe you guys are too. There's the HOA of Land Hill South, and that's where this group sort of, that was the seed of the group, and it started there. But since then, subsequent to that, it's expanded. You know, there's been a lot of discussion of you need to show us, a member of council told us directly, you need to show us people in the city of Harrison care about this too. And so that was the reason we did the petition. That's the reason it was easy to get 1,000. You know, we're just going to cut it off at 1,000. Tell us how many is an impactful number for you guys, and we'll get that many. Half of which are more are city of Harrison residents. And the conversations have been more illuminating, really, than the signatures on the petition. Because the events we've gone through, there is a real dissatisfaction and concern with development in the community. People are worried about traffic. People feel growth is happening too quickly. We're not getting in front of it. And yeah, there's no, you know, you did a great job educating us that the comprehensive plan is just a suggestion, just a guide. It's not legislation. So it really is kind of a hint, nice thing to have, but not really anything with any authority.
Right.
And so, you know, I think to kind of look at where Front Door Project is, in distinction to Land Hill HOA, is Front Door is about the whole issue of residential development in the community, and frankly, representing the concern of citizens. I don't know what kind of bubble you guys can be living in where you don't hear this, because we hear it all the time. We've got verbatims that we can pull from the petition. We did a survey just on a little polling thing, and I can share that with you too. We haven't shared it with you guys yet, about Front Door Project, awareness of it, what people thought of it, whether they thought it was a good thing. And one of the questions was, you know, how effective is city council in your mind at dealing with the area's problems, or the community's problems? And those were the lowest numbers of all, and frankly, kind of, and I'm sure you're not surprised by that, you know, pretty bad numbers. And so
What are pretty bad numbers?
you know, Jerry, let me do this. Let me get that document and share it with you guys, because for me to just spitball up here is not fair for either of us. So let me get that document. I'm happy to share it with you. We did that survey probably 4 months ago, and so you know, let me go back and get it. So this discussion is really not about so much what happens with this parcel of land here, because that's important to us. It's important to Land Hill South, and it's important to Front Door Project. But it's also about the future of Harrison and where we go. And we're trying to not keep development from happening. One of the things we all do is we travel to other areas and other neighborhoods all the time, and we say, look at this wonderful development, and look at this, and why can't we do this, and look at this, and look at this, and look at the wonderful things other communities have done to maintain their reputation and create a lifestyle that's pleasing in many regards. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to thwart development. We're not trying to keep the Kerrs from selling their property. We want them to. One of the things I think Front Door Projects had to do is get very smart and talk to smarter people than us about urban planning and the best practices involved with a quickly growing community like Harrison. We're not the first one going through this little gauntlet of problems. This happened many times before. There's entire websites for showing towns how to deal with some of these problems. And frankly, I've reached out. I've been very impressed with what the city of Cincinnati did with 3CDC and with the things that have gone on there. And I know a few people and I've tried to figure out who's doing what there, and have had a few meetings with urban planning consultants. And I've kind of been educated a little bit on best practices for urban planning and community planning. And it kind of, when we talk about a traffic study, we're talking about usually an isolated area here, an isolated area there. That's not what Harrison needs. What Harrison needs is what I guess in the urban planning vernacular they refer to as a master transportation plan. In 25 years, 20 years from now.
Find me $2 million and I'll get
Well,
one done.
okay, well let's do this. I hope that not having, that's like, there's never.
no grants for that type of work to be
Okay,
done.
there's never enough money to do something right the first time, but there's always enough money to fix it. I get it. I hope that money or the inability to solve the problem is what's going to keep something that we all know shouldn't happen from happening.
There's a lot more to urban planning than those websites.
Well, I'm not even
start
talking. I'm talking about conversations I've had with the planners.
And
They're very well aware of Harrison. Many of them are kind of very curious about what's going to happen out here because they know the numbers. They know what the communities that are going to grow. They have probably a better sense about the potential farmland and the 5 other plots of land that are going to be sold in the next decade than I've heard discussed in this room. But in any regard, because the Kerrs aren't going to be the last farm family that sells their land, they're going to be one of the first. And the schools aren't going to be needing to add another floor to one of the schools. They're going to be needing to add 5 new schools. The population isn't going to grow by 5%. In the next decade, it's going to grow by 30% or more. So these are the kind of things that if we, I come from a place where planning is paramount. If you're not planning, you're planning to fail. And what I would like to see is a real sort of combined collaborative sense about, hey, we're in a unique situation. We're growing because we have a very desirable community that people want to live in, and that's going to only increase. And so so government is going to work with community groups like ours. They're going to work with schools. They're going to work with consultants, and I don't think it would be $2 million from what I can tell. I think, that's a separate cycle.
I would guess my estimate's low because you have 2 interstate interchanges in that study.
Well, maybe it's just.
I know that a traffic study for Dry Fork Road interchange by itself was several $100,000.
Well, one of our members, one of our front door project members, Jan Herlinger, is often talking about getting a grant writer and hiring somebody that can be fully dedicated to planning. It's frustrating to me to hear. I think it's an easy and I hate to use the word cowardly, and I'm sure there's a better word. But I think we have problems we just can't solve. When I hear that, or we have problems that we don't have the money to solve, or when I hear that, it's disturbing because that's not the way human beings work. That's not what government's about. We vote you guys in to solve problems for us. And I know you're an appointed body.
I was gonna say, we are not voted in.
No, I know, I get it. But, we're all in the same, we all live in the same town.
We do, and respectfully,
Yep.
I want to say that there are people on this board that are giving their time to this community, and for you to use the word cowardly, does hit strike a chord with me because
I wasn't directing at that. And
But I want to say that, I want to state that as far as the law is concerned and what what is in front of us as a board, we are given sets of rules that we need to follow. We cannot just decide that we don't like something, and so therefore we're going to vote it down. We do need to take into account laws. We do need to, I mean, if somebody wants to sell their property, we cannot prevent them from selling their property, but we can find the best case scenario for everyone to be somewhat happy. Not everyone's going to be happy, and I appreciate this piece of paper that you've given here, but as I was flipping through it, it's a lot of emotion. It's a lot of emotion, and it's a lot of armchair warriors venting their frustrations, and I understand that. I live here. I sent my child to school here. I understand. I was part of the getting the district levy passed. That in itself had parameters. We could not ask for more money because they're like, well, you don't have those students yet. You can't build a larger school. These are the parameters you have to work within. So that's what we're doing as a entity here in our small community. We're working with the parameters that we have. We get it. We respect what you're trying to do, but you also have to have a little faith that we're going to do the best job that we can do for this community.
I mean, the school though, they stayed with the amount that the state said.
Exactly.
They didn't bother to try to get more so they could build bigger schools because they were afraid they wouldn't get the levy.
They weren't permitted to go beyond that.
No, they could have.
From my understanding.
They could have.
They could have.
A higher levy. They would have only
Oh, a
got.
higher levy, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's
so
what they'd had to do is just get a
Yeah.
higher levy. But they didn't want to do that because
would've
they
been
didn't
a-
think it would pass.
Right.
It would have been.
Which I understand
100%
that, but
their money.
you can't blame Mark Gradison for that, and you can't blame
Oh, no,
John
no,
Kerr
I'm
for
not.
that.
I'm
You know,
not.
that's not their fault. Anyway,
Okay, well, if
It's
there's
silly.
anything we can do to, Joe, when Shannon was here, and Tony, I think maybe you were with us, Jerry Chuck we met in your conference room with Shannon. This one you had your broken leg, I think. And we were curious to kind of, to your point, Timmy, is there anything we can do, or anyone can do, to go in and change the language on some of the zoning ordinances that would make mandatory berms and make mandatory front facings, and some of the cosmetic things that we're looking for that will not kind of create more eyesores. That, I hate to use that word. I'm using some bad words tonight, I guess, poorly thought through words, but just, let's call them eyesores now. Trying to kind of like create, as you turn left on Carolina Trace and go up the hill to what's going to be a very, I think you talk about development. We're all looking at the farms going in out here. I think Indiana, once you cross that Indiana line and the taxes are lower and there's a golf course out there, that's going to blow up. And so that's going to create so much more traffic on Carolina Trace that to begin, maybe you don't even have to get it right now, Mayor, just to get the conversation going about a mass, and multimodal is a term.
The zoning code amendments can be initiated by residents, by council, or by this board.
So help us understand, is there anything we can do to go in and craft that language or evolve it so that in the future, or maybe even now, we can get closer to where we're looking for?
Probably find an advocate that'll work with you on council to get the process started. Residential initiatives are a little bit more difficult, but if you can get a council member to champion your cause, it's a little bit easier.
Right, okay. Well, I'd like to think we could do that.
Just for a point of reference for you, I've got a whole lot of people that live just across the line in this cheap tax area of Indiana.
Yeah.
That swear their taxes are higher there than when they lived in Ohio. So it's whichever side of the fence you
Yeah,
live
that's
on.
anecdotal. I don't know. But what I do think will happen, and I think you would agree with this, is that area, people are desirous of a more rural, get me out of the rat race kind of lifestyle. And what that Carolina Trace corridor provides is beautiful land, homes now that can be, you know, either upgraded or scraped and new homes built, and if you cross the state line, it just keeps going. And so what that's all going to do, and it's a decade or two away, but what that's all going to do is create a traffic problem coming down Carolina Trace. And so if we look at the community as an organism just at large, and like what is, and knowing that a lot of people are going to be wanting to work in Cincinnati, and that a mass transit solution and bikes and all types of different transportation options need to be considered, you know. I'm sorry, what?
Nothing, I'm just listening.
Okay. That's the kind of best practice that other communities are doing. That's what's happening in Blue Ash. That's what's happening in Delhi, you know. And so, you know, why can't those things happen here? That's all I have tonight.
Okay.
We're not bad guys. We're not your enemy. We're here to help. Help us help you. Help us help you. If there's things we can do to kind of like help our cause, if it's changing language, if it's finding a council member to come in and advocate for changes in language, we're happy to do that. If there's something we haven't thought of, you know, it's like, hey, why don't you do this? You know, let us know. Because what I do know is that this is not just 8 people sitting out here. This is the conversation going on in the community right now. It is the conversation.
I'll just say, I think, you know, I mean, I think we have a lot more in common than we do differences. We all want the great Harrison.
Right.
And I just want to say, you know, appreciate the people being here throughout this process, for giving information, standing up here.
Executive session.
And yeah, so I mean, you know, as we go into this November 29th
28th.
work session, or 28th.
Oh,
No, I got
29th.
29th work session. I know it's not going to be a public forum to where everybody can speak, but I encourage you to be there. Then we have the public hearing on December 12th, that as well. I know you provided a document when we were at the American Legion. Update that.
Allow us to revise that and represent it.
And give that to us with something we'll look at. But yeah, no, I think it's important that your voices be heard, and we appreciate that. So,
Thank you, Brian.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, with that, does anybody else have anything?
Motion to adjourn.
Uh,
Or you got something?
You know, I thought it'd be a good idea to have an executive session to talk about the legalities.
You want to make that
would
motion? I'll
move-
withdraw my,
I would move we have an executive session.
I'll second the motion.
Mr. McMurdo?
Yeah.
Mayor Nair?
Yay.
Mr. Wilson?
Yay.
Ms. Knock?
Yay.
I'd like to note that no action or anything will take place after the executive session. We will come out of executive session and adjourn. There will be no motions or anything other than that entertained after the exec session. So if you want to stick around till we adjourn, that's fine. Don't know how long that'll be, but I want to assure you that. Well, I'm telling you that there won't be anything, because I've had people say, well, sometimes you come out and you do something. We're not. We're going to go in.
I just want to say, we truly do. I'm not signing up to be on any board, you know? So thank you guys for doing all this, and I know you have other jobs too,
Okay, so we're going to go into executive session.
No, do we stay here?
Yeah.
Or we go in-
We'll go in